Good morning, everybody, and happy Aloha Friday. Welcome to the Professional Service Group, PSG of Mercer County. And we do wish everyone an Aloha Friday each week. And as Alex noted a moment ago, yes, I am indeed wearing an Hawaiian shirt. One thing sheltering in place has done is allowed me to wear my Hawaiian shirt without worrying about getting too cold. It could be a little chilly outside. I can still comfortably wear my short sleeve Aloha shirt on Friday mornings. And so welcome to our virtual meeting. And for those of you that like using your smartphone or computer for using apps, those apps on your phones and computer, happy National App Day, not Apple Day, App Day. So today is National App Day, celebrating all people who like using apps or software applications. That's the long name. It's been reduced to app. So like using apps on their phones and computers. Certainly has made the phone more of a computer than a phone. We used to have the flip phones and things. Now we have a smart computer in our hands. And for those of you that are kind of science fiction and comedy fans, there's a very famous actress. She appeared in a Star Trek episode, the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and she was the assistant in Young Frankenstein, Terry Garr. It's her birthday today. She's 72. Can't imagine that. She always remembered her being very young. So happy birthday, Terry Garr. So welcome to PSG of Mercer County. We are a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. Doesn't matter why you are in a career transition. You may have chosen to take personal time for personal reasons, maybe helping a family member, maybe your company had some sort of reorganization. That happened to me twice. Maybe what you're doing is making a career shift. It's now time for you to do something different that you're taking the time to investigate. We are here to provide resources and information, a little bit of guidance and a lot of support so you could be more efficient and more effective in your own job search. Among the tools that we have is our LinkedIn group. And so do look on LinkedIn to use it. It is called PSG of Mercer County. So look for our LinkedIn group. When you find our group and go to the page, if you are not yet a member, there's a join or join group button. So just click that and we will immediately put you in pending status. And what I always remind people is the reason why we put you in pending status and you don't accept you right away is we do vet all requests through our attendance sheet, whether it's our online sheet or our historical in-person attendance, because we only want members in our LinkedIn group that have been to our in-person group or virtual group at least once. We're just trying to keep the list collectors and the name collectors, people that is looking for large gatherings of people for their own benefit. We're trying to keep them out. As a member, we encourage you to share articles and job leads and programs that you hear about and other presentations. Certainly, put some sort of information in our LinkedIn group to share with others. And of course, look for that information as well. There's usually a group setting that tells you how often you get emailed from the group. Mine is usually set to once a day. And also, it's nice with LinkedIn groups. We have over 1,600 members in our LinkedIn group now. It grows a few every week with our new members. And so we have over 1,600. And even if you are not a first degree connection to any of those individuals, by virtue of being in the group, you can still connect to them in LinkedIn. So you really have increased your number of first degree connections functionally by up to 1,600 more people. So that can be a big help to you in your job search. We do have our website, psgofmercercounty.org, psgofmercercounty.org. It's more than a landing page. We're very proud of it. We've had several project teams over the years work on making it more and more robust. We have over 120 web pages of content, a lot of information that's in there. And what we've worked on quite recently is our open jobs page, our job postings page. So you'll see right in the middle of our menu item, a job posting menu item. And that menu item then opens up and you will see a list of counties, and it's Mercer County and the 6 border counties. And when you click on any of those pages, you begin to dive down and find lists of up to 2,600 companies just in Mercer and the 6 border counties. So that's kind of our main service area, but anyone looking to job hunt in that area. And then those lists of companies, when you click on them, each company name is linked to their career page. So we're not posting jobs in those pages, we're posting links to those companies. Now, they may or may not have a job for you right now, something you can apply to. So you could also use that as creating your own list of targeted companies. You go through the area of interest and you find some companies, and you may be able to now, if you're interested in Mercer County, for example, find a list of companies that you would want to target in Mercer. You may not have known certain companies have offices there. Some of the offices are big, some of them are small, so it's possible it could be small sales offices, that's there too. And also what we have, and it's brand new, just a few weeks old, in that same open jobs menu item is our job postings page. And you just click, once you get to the open jobs page, click on the link for job postings. And so we are now allowing and enabling recruiters, hopefully one day it'll be employers as well, to post positions. So we have 4 new postings in the last week or so, a couple of HR, senior HR and mid-level HR jobs. But go take a look at the job postings page. And on that page, you can also put in your own email address to get notifications of postings. So go take a look at it. Hopefully that will be helpful to you. Our basic ground rules for this morning. In just a moment, I'll formally turn over the presentation to our presenter, Lou Maltby. So he will be running the presentation and giving a wonderful, very important topic today. And then also, I ask you, do keep your microphones on mute. You're welcome to keep your cameras on or off. That's up to you. On is a little friendly. It's like having an audience. We can see each other, but if you don't want to do that right now, that's fine. And what we are going to do is we're going to use chat for our questions in this program. Getting to be a bit of a large group today, over 60 people so far. So I think if we open mic everyone, it'll just be a little messy. So chat, in the upper right corner of your GoToMeeting screen are a couple of icons. One, you see a couple of people side by side, they're icons, and with the number 60, so that's all the participants on right now. And right next to that is a little cartoon call-out bubble. And there may be a number next to it also, which shows the number of people that have issued chat so far. So what I would suggest is, if you have a question, put it in chat and precede it with the word question. So if you have a specific question that you want Lou to answer, type the word question and then write your question. And the reason why is we do use chat for lots of other things. People introduce themselves and have other side conversations. If I see the word question, if Lou and I see that, then that helps stand out a little bit. And we want to do our best not to miss your question. So just do that when you're ready. And what I will do is when I see a question or two on the side, I will just ask Lou, oh, Lou, please excuse me, there's a question, and he will answer it. Plus, he's going to have time at the end of the program as well. When we wrap up the meeting, I don't know, 11:15, 11:30, when it's actually all over with all the Q&A and announcements, I'm going to keep this session open a little while, and we can have some open networking. Of course, we can't be in the library right now and hanging out, but we can hang out virtually, and the conversation is whatever you want to talk about. All right, so that's where we are right now. So I think we are all set, which is terrific. And so I'm just pleased to say that PSG of Mercer County is pleased to welcome Louis Maltby. Lou is the president of National Work Rights Institute. Lou has the unique perspective of having been both an HR director and a public interest lawyer. Before leaving the corporate world to become the first director of the ACLU's National Employment Rights Office, Lou was executive vice president and general counsel for Drexel Brook Controls, Inc., where his responsibilities included the Human Resources Department. You may have seen Lou before. He's been quoted in the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and virtually any other newspaper in America. He's appeared on 60 Minutes, National Public Radio, CNN, Oprah, and many other television and radio shows. C-SPAN junkies may have seen one of Lou's many appearances testifying before Congress. Lou's presentation today is called Running the Pre-Employment Minefield. You all know that employers use a variety of pre-employment screens, including criminal background checks, credit reports, drug testing, reference checks, etc. Any one of those can cause you to lose a job you would have otherwise have had. So PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome Lou Maltby.
Thank you, David. I'm here to tell you about the minefield and how you can get through it safely. That's the most important part. So congratulations. You just got an offer letter from the company that you interviewed with last week offering you the job. Now you can finally
A little bit of feedback. Somebody must have a microphone open. Let's see.
So you finally got the offer letter from that company you interviewed last week. And now you can relax and stop worrying about how you're going to pay your bills. Unfortunately, you're not quite there yet. The letter you received is what's called a conditional job offer. It means that certain conditions have to be met before the offer becomes official, becomes firm. If those conditions aren't met, that offer can be and probably will be withdrawn and thrown into the wastebasket, and you'll be right back where you started. Different employers have got different conditions, but 4 requirements are very, very common, and you'll probably have to meet them. One of the conditions you're probably going to have to meet is a good credit report. You might think that doesn't matter for you because the job you're applying for has no financial responsibility, no handling money, but it's no. For some reason, I've never been able to discover lots of employers run credit checks for jobs where it doesn't make any sense at all. Don't ask me why. I'm just a lawyer, I'm not a psychiatrist. But no matter what the nature of the job is, there's a good chance that you'll have to have a good credit report. Now, you also might think this isn't a problem for you because you're a good, honest person. You pay your bills on time. So what could go wrong? The problem is that credit check companies have virtually no quality control features. And I mean literally none. Errors are beyond common. They're ubiquitous. One of the most common mistakes is that they'll get you mixed up with somebody who has the same name as you or even a similar name. And if that person doesn't pay their bills on time, it goes down as you being a bad credit risk. The other common problem is that you received a product from a merchant, it was defective, so you didn't pay for it. Or they never sent it at all, and you didn't pay for it. The merchant puts down that you stiffed him. He's not going to tell the credit bureau why you didn't pay it, and they're not going to ask. They just turn it, you didn't pay, it goes in a record, and it torpedoes your credit. The third problem is that maybe your credit report doesn't look so good because at one point in your life, you had trouble paying your bills. You were sick, you were out of work, you were taking care of, you were taking care of somebody in your family. But so you had a financial difficulty for a while and you couldn't pay your bills. Again, you might think the credit bureau would see, oh, there's a pattern here. This guy's perfectly honest. He just had a financial problem from this time to this time. No, it doesn't work that way. If you think they do, you might as well believe in the Easter Bunny. They're just going to put it in, they're going to push the button, and the number for your credit score comes out bad, and you're in trouble. Fortunately, there's a reasonable solution to this. It's a federal law called the Fair Credit Reporting Act, called FCRA. Under FCRA, you've got a right to get a free copy of your credit report at least once a year, and to have the credit bureau correct any mistakes you bring to their attention. It's not as easy as it ought to be. You may have to jump through a few hoops, but it does work. If you persevere and keep jumping through their hoops, the mistakes almost certainly will be corrected. There's a number of places you can get your free credit report. This is the best one to use. This one is set up by the Federal Trade Commission. Others are private. They may or may not be as accurate. They'll charge you a fee. This is not the only place you can get the free copy of your report, but you can get it. And if you have a situation where your credit report doesn't look that good, and it wasn't a mistake on the credit bureau's part, think about why did it happen. You're probably not a deadbeat. It was big medical bills. You were looking for work, but there was a legitimate explanation for this. Whatever it is, think about what it is before you go in for the interview, so that if and when this comes up, you won't be fumbling around. You'll be able to explain in a coherent manner why this is a problem. And if you do that to the HR person, the bad credit may not stop you, but you've got to be prepared. So now we're going to move to criminal records checks, and that's just a question, David.
Yeah, so there's a question from Michael, and he wrote, I have heard it is impossible to get errors corrected because the data is offshore and the companies cannot change the offshore data, and you cannot have access to the overseas data. So I guess he's wondering if that's true or false.
Well, I know that I had to use it once myself, and it was a pain in the ass, but it worked. And the people I know that work in this field a lot, I've never heard that there's a systemic problem of getting errors corrected. It's probably true that this stuff is offshore, but that doesn't change the fundamental the nature of the process. Somebody's gathering data and someone's putting it together and reporting it. And I'm sure there are situations where there was a mistake that wasn't corrected, but in general, if you keep plugging away, everything I know and have heard from people in the field is that if you keep plugging away, it will get corrected.
Okay, and we have another question from Donald. Can you request a credit report multiple times without affecting your credit rating?
Absolutely. There are limits as to how many times you can get a free credit report, but that's only how many free ones you can get. You can get more if you want to pay for even more than the law requires for free, and that does not show up as a credit score. I understand the concern, I think. If this were a human being you're working with, they'd say, why is he asking? But this is not a person. This is just a computer process, and there's no human being involved who's going to know how many times you've asked and is going to wonder why you're asking. There are a lot of problems here, but that's not one of them. You can get as many credit reports as you want to or need to.
Okay, that was our last credit question, so let's move on.
Okay. Now, the next hurdle. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I forgot something very important about credit checks. Sorry about that. It's early in the morning for me. I'm retired. And this is the most important thing of all, is be proactive. Don't wait for your prospective employer to show you the bad credit report and give you a chance to explain what's wrong with it and let you correct the mistakes, because even though they're supposed to, it's going to take time to get the mistakes fixed, and the company's not going to keep that job opening long enough for you to deal with the credit bureaus and fix the mistakes. They're supposed to, but they don't. They may hire you for the next opening, but if you wait to fix the mistakes until your boss shows, the prospective boss shows them to you, you probably won't get through the door before it closes. So the most important thing of all is get the credit report before you've got a job interview lined up, preferably when you're just starting the search process, and get the credit report fixed now. So by the time the prospective employer sees it, there won't be anything to explain. Being proactive is really critical here. Now, all right. Now, the next hurdle is the records check. It used to be that it was kind of difficult to get a police record. I had an unfortunate incident when I was just about ready to start college, where I was somewhere where I shouldn't have been, and somebody said something they shouldn't have said, and I responded in a way I shouldn't have responded, and nothing happened. The manager of the place where I slugged this guy called my dad. My dad came down, made it very clear that he was even more concerned than the manager was, and he and my dad sorted this out. I never even saw a policeman, much less the courtroom. It doesn't happen that way anymore. You can't spit in a sidewalk without getting a criminal record. My son got arrested for borrowing a tiki lamp from a next door neighbor's lawn. He probably intended to put it back. It wasn't even a crime, but it didn't keep him from getting arrested for it. So we're at a point now where about 1 in 3 American adults has got some sort of criminal record. If you have one, you're in good company. And just to make things a little worse, now that these things are computerized, that record will go on forever. Your criminal record will probably be alive and well long after you died. So, and it doesn't matter where it happened. You committed a crime in California when you were 22 and you're now 50 looking for a job in New Jersey, it's probably going to show up. So this can be a problem. But again, sometimes there really shouldn't be a problem because it's not you. Criminal record checking companies are not as slipshod as credit checking bureaus, but their quality standards aren't always all that high, and they make mistakes. Now, again, you have some opportunity protection in this area. In New Jersey, there's a law called the Opportunity to Compete Act. Colloquial name is Ban the Box. And it prohibits employers from asking about your criminal record before the first interview. They have to wait until they brought you in for the interview and you've talked to them before they can ask you about the record. And again, you don't want to wait until you're with the boss who's showing you, oh, we were going to hire you, except we got this criminal record check on you. And then you tell him, that's not me, that's some other John Smith. Same thing as credit checks. Get it ahead of time. You can't get a criminal record check for free the way you can a credit check, but they don't cost a fortune. And most criminal record check companies don't take individual orders. Wait a minute. Where's the slide? Oh, right. There's on the screen now, there are 2 companies. There's our URLs that will take an individual order for a criminal record. You can go to these websites, you can order your own record and see if there's anything in there that's wrong. It's not as easy to get mistakes fixed But it's not impossible. The company that ran the records check for you, these two organizations, they might be willing or able to tell you, where did they get this report that says you committed this crime, only it was somebody else? And then you can go back to the source of that incorrect information and tell them to change it. And they might do it. You might have to get a lawyer, but if you do, it probably isn't going to take that many billable hours. And investing a few dollars in a lawyer so that that criminal record gets corrected before your prospective employer sees it is a very good investment. It can take that bullet away before it even exists, and it's really a good thing to do. And last but not least, if your prospective boss asks about the record, tell the truth. Don't think that they're not going to find it, because they probably will. And having the record may not be the kiss of death. There are so many people with records now. Employers are beginning to realize that they can't turn everybody down with a record. They're starting to think about whether a particular record is really a disqualifier or not. If you didn't kill anybody, maybe the criminal record won't actually stop you from getting the job. But if you don't tell the truth when they ask you about the record and they catch you lying, you're dead. You could lose the job that you didn't lose it because of the conviction. You lost it because you didn't tell the truth about the conviction. And every employer I know has an automatic policy that your application goes in the shredder if they asked you about the record and you didn't tell them the truth. So the truth may or may not hurt you, but trying to cover it up definitely will hurt you. Okay, now we come to the good old drug test.
So actually, Lou, if I can, there are a couple of questions.
Records, pardon me.
So actually, let's see, these are both, one is credit check still. So
Okay.
Robert's asking a question. What is the number on a credit report which a company would deny you from getting a job?
There really is no particular number. Not every company even has a specific credit score. And if they do, it changes from company to company. And it changes significantly. So I wish I could tell you the answer, but there really is none. There is no minimum credit score that all employers use. It varies from company to company.
Okay. And then we have another question. This is F. Mula. How long does it take for a hiring company to get a credit check or criminal report on you?
Again, it depends on where they're getting it, but it's probably a matter of days. It doesn't take all that long. And which I'm not sure what you're asking, but it's one more reason to get it cleaned up ahead of time, because if you wait until the interview, by the time you get it and get it fixed, they will have long since got it. It's the time from the interview to when the offer letter goes out and the final decision gets made in modern corporate America has gotten telescoped way down. It's a very short window that job is open, which is the reason I'm harping on you need to get these errors in your records fixed before you go to the interview and they start checking you out, because the doors open such a short length of time. There's no time to fix it then. You need to fix the mistakes in your record before they come to an employer's attention.
Okay, and that was our last question for now.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Now the drug test, which has actually got me into this business in the first place, but that's a story we don't need to hear today. You might think, a lot of people think that because marijuana is legal in their state, and New Jersey isn't legal yet, but it's going to be legal in New Jersey relatively soon. The problems that are holding it back are pretty minor. You might think, well, I don't have to worry about the drug test anymore. No, not true. Just because the police can't arrest you for smoking pot doesn't mean your prospective employer can't refuse to hire you for smoking pot. And the day is probably going to come when employers are going to stop making you pee in a bottle before they give you a job. Social attitudes are changing, which is why the law is changing, but they change slowly. In most employers that had a drug test a couple of years ago have still got it. It's going to take years because it goes out away from the system, primarily because HR people are very risk averse, and their boss, the general counsel, maybe not their boss, they're risk averse. The company's got a drug testing program now. They've had one for years. If I say we should get rid of the drug testing program and we hire somebody and we have a problem because he's using drugs at work, I'm going to look bad. So nobody wants to stick their neck out. No employer wants to be in the newspapers as the first employer to drop drug testing. So even though the employers themselves don't really care that you smoke pot on the weekend, that drug test is still going to be there. And if you fail it, you're in trouble. Even though they don't care that you smoke marijuana, the HR department person may be smoking pot themselves at night. But that's not going to prevent them from turning you down if, in fact, you test positive. It's kind of perverse, but that's just the way it is. Fortunately, the answer is really very simple. If you like to smoke pot instead of drinking beer, when you start looking for a job, switch to beer for a while. Illegal drugs don't stay in your system very long. Hard drugs like cocaine are out in a couple of days. Marijuana takes a little bit longer, maybe a week or two. But that's all. Probably your job search will last more than a couple of weeks. So if you just decide to change the beer for a while when you're looking for a job, by the time you have to pee in a cup, you'll pass. You could probably get away with switching to beer when you get the offer to go in for an interview. That I wouldn't do it that way. I'd stop when I started looking for a job. But if you waited till you got the interview letter to switch to beer for a while, that's almost certainly going to be good enough. So even if you like to smoke pot, unless you're so hopelessly dependent on your pot that you can't knock it off for a few weeks to get through the drug test, you won't have a problem. Now, there's one other thing to talk about here. There's a person involved in this process called a medical review officer. His or her job is to look at all the positive tests that come back to see if for some reason the positive test might not be accurate. And the most common reason for flunking a drug test, other than taking drugs, is something called cross-reactivity. All sorts of different medicines and other substances will show up as a positive on a drug test. Sometimes it's not a false positive. If you're taking OxyContin because you just had knee surgery and you need it for the pain, you'll fail the drug test. It's an opiate. So you're not guilty of anything, but it's not a false positive. And then there's other over-the-counter medicines that can also cause a positive result because to the test it looks like marijuana or cocaine. So there's two things. One is, unless you really, really need that medication you're taking, you might consider just going off it for a while when you know you've got an interview coming up and there's going to possibly be an offer and a drug test down the road. If you can't, if you really need this medication all the time, don't put your health at risk. But gather up all your prescriptions and make copies of them so that when the medical review officer says, excuse me, you failed, you can say, yes, I know, I'm taking X and Y drugs, here's my prescription. That usually is okay. The medical review officers, they're really not that concerned about correcting false positives if they're not going to do any work. And they're not going to take your word for it. Don't even think they're going to take your word for it. But if you've got the prescription copy right in your hand and you stick it in their hand, they're going to see, oh, yes, that explains the positive drug test result and everything should be okay. Again, it's a question of being prepared. Wait a minute. Last and not least, do not, I repeat, do not try to cheat. It won't work. You can look in the back of Rolling Stone or Mother Jones or any number of magazines, and there's all sorts of people saying, oh, buy this from us, buy that from us, and you can beat the drug test. Baloney. It's just snake oil. They don't work. You're going to be out the money, and then you're going to lose the job because you're going to fail the drug test. Don't try to sip something into your urine sample. I won't tell you what not to do, but there are things you can put in the urine sample that sometimes will make it come out negative. Some people try to substitute somebody else's urine they smuggled into the test in their back pocket. It doesn't work most of the time. This stuff isn't exactly rocket science, and these people who run the testing laboratories are not idiots. They know the sort of things people can do to try to cheat, and they've got you cut off at the pass. They're going to test the temperature of the urine. Oh, it's not very warm. It didn't come out of this guy's body 5 minutes ago. You're busted. They run a pH test. They run chemical tests you probably never even heard of. If you try to cheat on the test, you'll probably get caught. And if you get caught, you're roadkill. Just do it the smart way. Just make it so you're not going to test positive because you haven't been using lately. That works. Cheating doesn't work. The last major hurdle is references. Now, this doesn't usually come up after the offer letter. It comes up before the offer letter, but it's part of the selection process, and it's worth talking about. This is actually not a mine that you have to avoid. This is actually an opportunity for you. If you did a good job at your last job, and you probably did, you want your new boss to know what a great job you did on your last job. It's going to help you get the job. This is not a minus, this is a potential plus. But if you just put down the name of the company and when you worked there and what job you did on the application form, when they check the reference, they're going to go to HR. And HR has been very carefully schooled by more senior management and the company general counsel. Don't tell them anything. Position held, dates of employment, that's it. There are reasons that they do it this way. They're really stupid, but that's kind of beyond the scope of today's discussion. But if you go to HR, if you just put down the company, they're going to call HR, and they're not going to get anything. And even if HR was willing to talk to them, what does HR know? Unless you worked in HR, they don't know how good a job you did. The person who really knows how good a job you did is your former supervisor. That's the person you want them talking to. So sure, put down the name of the company you worked for and put down the position you had and how long you were there, and then put down the name of your immediate supervisor and put his phone number, not his work number, his home phone number. And then when you got an application going and things are starting to go well, and they may be calling up your former boss, call him first. Just say, Charlie, I got a job interview coming up, or I just had a job interview with a company I really want to work for. They might be calling you to ask them what I was like working for you. I hope you'll be willing to talk to them. And he will. He's heard a thing from corporate general counsel about, oh, don't give out information. But if you call him at home, and if somebody calls him at home on Sunday afternoon and says, we're really interested in Joe Smith, he said he used to work for you. Can you tell me about him? They're going to talk to him. They're not going to say you walked on water if you didn't walk on water, but they're going to talk about your good qualities. Now, this may sound a little off the wall. I know you've heard so many times you can't get a reference check, name, rank, serial number, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. I used to make a lot of hires myself. I hired every senior exec in that company for 12 years. I made a couple of hundred of these phone calls. Nobody ever refused to talk to me. Nobody ever told me when I called them at home on Sunday afternoon, I won't talk to you. I'd say, I'm really interested in this guy I used to work for. I'm thinking about hiring him. Can you talk to me? Well, if you did a good job and the guy likes you, he's going to want to help you get the new job. And he will talk to them and tell them the things you did that were good. It really does work. Now, I hope I haven't scared you by talking about this minefield. Like everything else in life, it's good news and bad news. The bad news is, yeah, it's a minefield. You can be the best qualified person for this job. The company can think, yep, he's the guy we want to hire. You step on one of these mines, and you're gonna lose the job. That's the sad reality. But the good news is that if you play the game smart, and I don't mean you're doing anything sneaky, you're just being intelligent, you can run this gauntlet successfully, and you won't lose the job because of one of these pre-employment screens. I won't say it never happens, but if you're smart and you play your cards right, it won't get you the offer letter, but you won't lose the offer letter over one of these things if you try to follow the map that I'm giving you to get through the minefield. Thank you. Questions, David?
Yeah, so there's still a few questions, which is good.
Yep.
So Deborah asked, if you do find something you want to fix, for example, in a credit check, how many years are you supposed to go back?
Oh, well, you don't have to worry about, you're talking about.
I guess she wants to know if she found an old mistake.
Well, unfortunately, if it doesn't really matter how old it is, if your prospective future employer sees that it's never too old to prejudice them against you. At some point, it will be old enough it won't show up on the report. So you don't have to worry about it. But if it's recent enough to be on the credit report that you get when you order your free copy, it's current enough that it could go against you, and you need to get it fixed.
Okay. Michael has a question. Actually, it's a statement that I guess we have to turn into a question. I hear even if it is for medical reasons, you can still be denied. So I guess the question is that correct?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, there are sometimes I really do think I've gone to medical school and studied psychiatry when I'm trying to study employer behavior. If somebody's taking marijuana for medical reasons, why the hell would you not want to hire it? Well, there's no sensible answer, but some employers would turn you down, even though the marijuana is for medical purposes and it's perfectly legal. I'm not saying they will. Some employers are smart enough not to do that, but some employers are so rock-headed about this, they will still not give you the job. And in every state I'm aware of, the medical marijuana law doesn't say that the boss can't hold it against you. It just says that the police can't arrest you. And unfortunately, that's the case in New Jersey. So it matters. Bring the prescription, but it doesn't necessarily always work that you're using marijuana for legal medical purposes. The boss could still turn you down if he wants to.
Okay. Another question from F. Mula. What if you're on a prescription and not aware that the drug test can result in a failed drug test? Can you follow up after the drug test results? Please advise.
Okay, it's a good point. I've got a list somewhere of all the prescription over-the-counter medications that can cause a false positive reaction. It'll fill up the whole damn screen, and there's probably some new ones I don't even know about. There's no way in the world you can figure out in advance whether or not the medications you're taking are going to possibly trigger a positive drug test result. So don't try. Whatever you're taking, have a copy, write your fingertips so that if you get a call from the medical review officer, you can give him the prescription and let him worry about whether this is something that could cause a false positive reaction. They know. So don't try to figure out if you need to have the prescription or not. If you're taking some medication with a prescription, get a copy of the prescription, have it at your fingertips, just in case you need it. The worst you've done is make a photocopy that you didn't need. Better to play it safe than try to figure out whether you need to do it in advance.
And this next question from Mike is kind of in line to your answer. When you obtain your prescription for mail-in, say 90 days, etc., you may not physically obtain a prescription. The doctor will send it directly to the pharmacy. Any suggestions?
That's a good question. I'm just ad-libbing this here, but the one or two times that I've gotten prescription on the internet, I believe that there is some kind of an RX number on the shipping label when it comes out that shows that I've got a legitimate reason for this. If the package you receive doesn't have that, if there's a physician involved, he or she, they've got a record. You could go back to the place, you got the prescription medication online, and you should be able to get a copy of that prescription from them. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. You might have to do some jumping through hoops, which is one more reason to do all this all up front. But if there is a prescription, even if it's from a mail order place, you ought to be able to get a copy. And again, I'm ad-libbing here, but if you're taking some kind of prescription medication that you, particularly if it's a painkiller, you might want to just do it the old-fashioned way while you're looking for a job. Go to see your personal physician, get a piece of paper prescription that you can photocopy so you know you're going to be able to deal with this. There's some risk involved probably in getting prescription medication online. in terms of being able to get the document you need to show the medical review officer. I'm not saying you have to go back to see your family doctor, but if you're taking some kind of prescription medication, particularly a painkiller, the safest thing to do is, while you're looking for a job, use your personal physician instead of the internet.
One thing comes to mind, Lou, and I have a couple of called maintenance prescriptions that are mail order. It still arrives in some sort of bottle or box that has the prescription label on it.
Exactly.
So it has my name, the name of the medicine, and so I would think on short order, that's at least a starting point.
Absolutely.
And I know that when it comes to me, at least the company that mails to me, they also send me a kind of receipt that has my name and the name of the medicine. So I would say, for those of you in a similar situation, check to see how your meds arrive to see if that can be helpful to you as well.
Again, mail order companies are all different.
Yeah.
But when I've seen it happen, when I've used it, it has the same sort of label on the pills as the pill bottle that I got from my local pharmacy, from my local doctor. So you probably can get what you need, even if it's mail order. But again, look at the bottle that you got. If it doesn't have anything on there, you can show to a medical review officer. Go back to the mail order place and get it if you can, or if you have to, switch to your personal physician so you can get the documentation. Because if you fail the test, you're going to have the document. They will not take your word for anything. You got to have the document in your hand to show that it was false positive. You got to remember that there's these drug testing labs. They're running thousands of tests a day, and there are dozens of tests a day to come out positive. MRO doesn't have a lot of time to think about you. And he's not going to spend a lot of time thinking about you. It's not like he doesn't care whether or not you really use drugs or not. If you can show them that you don't, they're not going to be vindictive and torpedo your job application. But if you don't have your documentation lined up when you talk to the MRO, it's not going to go well, because he's not going to spend the time with you for you to straighten it out. You got to have it to stick it right in his hand when you need it. And you can do that. It's really just preparation.
Okay. So Dara has a question. Do the references sometimes speak about the negatives?
Surprisingly, not that much. If this was a guy who wouldn't hire you back, if you were to apply to work for him, you probably don't want to put his name down. I'm assuming you did a good job at your last place, and your supervisor is going to, if he tells the truth and the whole truth, it'll be good. If he doesn't like you or wouldn't say good things about you, well, forget him. Just put down the company name to confirm your position and dates of service. My experience was that the people I talked to, and then I hired someone, they didn't make up virtues about them, but they tended to focus more on the positive than the negative. Now, I would actually say, okay, so you told me all the guy's good qualities, tell me his limitations. And even then, they wouldn't say anything all that bad. If you did a good job for this person and they were sorry to see you go, and you got riffed, or something that doesn't make your former supervisor think badly about you, if they'd like to have you back, give them as a reference, because they're going to say a lot more to help you than to hurt you. Anything that your boss says about your good qualities and your good performance is more than a guy from HR. HR is not going to tell them a damn thing about what a good job you did. They'll just say, yeah, he worked here, and that from this job, from this date to this date. So your previous supervisor doesn't have to love you to improve what they're going to hear when they make the reference check call. They just have to think you were a good employee they'd like to have back.
Okay. Julie has a question. How many years back does a credit report go back?
It used to be legally restricted to 7 years. It's not legally restricted anymore, but they don't go back forever. I can't give you a precise number, but when you run your credit, get your free credit report, you'll find out.
Okay. Vance has a question. Do all traffic offenses show in criminal records?
Thank you. Absolutely not. A traffic offense is not a crime. Getting an offender bender and having a civil liability suit for negligence in driving your car is not a crime. Crimes are a separate category of offenses. So again, what matters is what shows up when the criminal records check is run. You don't have to really think about it that much. You just have to get a copy of your criminal record. But no, traffic offenses don't count. Drug driving is not a traffic offense. Drug driving is a crime. Speeding, failure to put your signal light on, running a red light, those are not crimes. That's just traffic. Basically, the only thing involving a car that's going to be a criminal offense that's shown on the record is drunk driving. The others don't show up. Now, if you're applying for a job driving a vehicle, there's a very good chance that they will check your driving record, which is not such a bad idea if you're going to be driving a truck for them. And then all these traffic offenses will show up. But there are some check, like the credit check, they'll run it whether it makes any sense or not. The traffic driving histories aren't like that. If an employer, if you're not going to be driving a vehicle for the employer, they almost never run a driving check. So if you're not applying for a job driving a vehicle, you shouldn't have to worry about your traffic record because they don't usually check it unless there's a reason to.
Okay. Pat has a question. Between the major credit checking companies, is one company better or more accurate than others?
Unfortunately not. There's only 3 big ones, and they're all terrible. This is just an anecdote, but it shows how bad they are. A couple of houses ago, I was buying a house, and of course they ran a credit check, and the bank I had the mortgage for 2 houses ago sent a letter that said, Maltby's a deadbeat. He didn't make his mortgage payments on time. And I went, oh my God, I'm going to lose the job. Oh no, it was a new mortgage, but it's the same point. And then a couple of weeks later, the bank sent the credit checking company another letter that said, oh my God, we're sorry. Disregard our previous letter. Maltby always paid his mortgage payments on time. And I thought, oh, okay, I guess everything's all right. But then because it was a purchase of a house and I was going to sell my old one and I didn't want to sleep in the streets, I thought, I better check. So I called up the credit bureau and said, you got the letter from the other company, right? The second letter from the bank. And they said, oh yeah, we got it. I said, okay, so you're gonna fix the report that you gave my new bank saying I was a deadbeat. And they said, no, we didn't do that. I said, but your report was wrong. And they said, yeah, we know it was wrong. They said, you have to request a copy of your report and then tell us what's wrong with it and we'll get it fixed. And then we'll tell your new bank the accurate information. I said, but why do I have to ask you for a copy of the report when and tell you what the mistake is? I already know what the mistake is. You know what the mistake is. Just fix the damn record. They would not do it. I mean, that's just how ridiculous these guys are, and they're all equally bad. there's not too many certainties in this world except for death and taxes, but there's a very high likelihood when you see your credit report that there'll be something wrong on it. It'll probably happen. So get it fixed. They will fix it if you jump through their hoops.
Michael has a question. Do they have to tell you if you failed a drug test? I have always passed, but no one has ever told me one way or the other.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up. There are certain cases where they have to tell you. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, if the credit check or the criminal record check comes back with something that may cause them to deny you the job, they're legally required by federal law to show you the report, show you what's got them concerned, and give you a chance to explain it or fix it. And that almost always happens. There are some federal laws that employers just don't follow, but this isn't one of them. If it's a credit check or a criminal record, they are legally obligated and they'll show you the record that's got them concerned before they throw your resume in a wastebasket. They don't have to do that with drugs tests. They don't have to explain. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they don't have to show you the record. They don't have to tell you what you failed for. They don't have to give you an opportunity to fix it. They just throw your application out, which is why you don't want to fail in the first place, because you won't get a chance to explain it later.
Okay. Mike has a question. Some applications are now asking detailed questions about your health. Please advise on this. And I'm assuming it's job applications. I just don't specifically know what Mike is addressing.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. There's two answers here. There's the official answer, and then there's the real answer. The official answer is that under the Americans with Disabilities Act, employers are not supposed to ask medical questions of job applicants unless they're, quote, job-related and business necessities, which means what common sense would tell you. You've got a bad back, you shouldn't be lifting heavy bags of cement in a loading dock. So there's a very high probability these medical questions aren't legal. But of course, the perennial problem is you're just an applicant. If you refuse to answer them, bad things will happen. You probably, as a practical matter, have got to fill those things in, even though you shouldn't have to. You might want to think about not filling them in and then have them call you and say, you left it out, and fill it in later, but that you might not get that opportunity. As you guys know even better than I do, employers don't give a rat's ass about an applicant. Once you've been interviewed, they might think that, oh, this guy's got some potential. Now there's some willingness to invest a little time in thinking about something about your background that may or may not be a concern. But until you've been in for an interview, imagine the HR professional. They got one opening, they got 14 resumes in their desk. They're almost looking, literally, they're looking for ways to get rid of 10 or 12 of the 15 because they can't deal with 15 applicants.
Screening you out.
There's a typo in your resume. They might throw your resume in a wastebasket because they're trying to get rid of enough applicants to get down to a manageable number. So the sad reality is whatever dumb thing they want you to do when you're applying for the job, it's a practical matter. You probably have to do it, because if you argue with them about it, they're going to go, oh, screw him, and they're going to shred your resume. Sorry, but that's how it is.
And Joe has a question. Do drug tests ever get mixed up, and could you fail because of someone else's? If so, how do you fix that?
It does happen. And all men are created equal, but not all drug testing laboratories are created equal. The Department of Health and Human Services has a division that deals with drug testing. It's called SAMHSA. And SAMHSA has a laboratory certification program. And if the company you want to work for is required to test you by federal law, mostly in transportation, your employer has to use one of these federally certified labs that doesn't make very many mistakes. And some employers will use HHS certified labs even though they don't have to. But you know, corporate America, everybody's looking to get something cheap. And there are some companies out there that will use a non-certified lab because it's less expensive, and they do make mistakes. And there usually isn't anything you can do about it. Even if you can prove they're wrong, it doesn't matter. It's employment at will. However, what I will tell you is that there are some cases where the result is demonstrably wrong. And I've worked in one or two cases with a forensic chemist who's an expert in the field, who's been able to get somebody's job back when they've lost a job because the lab screwed up. You can't do it very often, and it does cost money, but sometimes it's possible. But usually when the lab screws up, most of the time you can't do anything about it.
Okay.
You're just an applicant, nobody cares. Just pass.
And then we have another drug test question. Can a drug test reveal if somebody is pregnant?
Theoretically, yes. If you take someone's blood or their urine, there's a lot of medical information in there. And it is medically possible to find out somebody's pregnant from a urine test. And I was about to say, don't worry, it doesn't happen. And I remember that 20 years ago, when I was working with the ACLU, we caught the city of Washington, D.C. secretly conducting pregnancy tests of all the female applicants from the urine sample because they didn't want to hire pregnant ladies because they were going to cost them a bunch of money in medical bills. But I can tell you that I've been in this field for 32 years. I've only seen it happen once. So yeah, your prospective boss could see if you're pregnant from that urine sample, but it's almost zero probability that they will. It's one of those things just essentially doesn't happen. There's a lot of bad things that happen in the workplace routinely, but this isn't one of them. That's really getting struck by lightning when they do that.
So another question, do messy divorces with a temporary restraining order, such as dismissed by a judge after 10 days, show up?
They shouldn't. That's not a criminal offense. And the line's kind of strange, but if you're either in criminal court or you're in divorce court. And if you're in divorce court and the judge says you can't do this or you can't do that, that's not criminal. The judge could even lock you up for failure to pay child support. It's still not a criminal conviction, and it shouldn't and almost certainly won't show up on the criminal records check. On the other hand, if there's anything you can do to keep them from finding out about it, do it. And certainly don't do anything, not a word that could indicate to the HR professional that something like this is going on, because that's not going to help you. it sounds like a crime, even if it isn't. But so
Okay.
it should not, almost certainly will not show up on your back criminal record check.
Another question, does being denied credit show up on your credit report?
I'm pretty sure the answer is no. That's a decision some bank made. It's not actually an event. An event is you paid your bill or you didn't pay your bill. Someone else's decision about whether your credit score was good enough to give you a loan or sell you a house really should not, I don't believe it does, show up on your credit check. But of course, if you were denied a loan by somebody else, the fact you were turned down itself isn't good, but whatever information they saw that made them turn you down could be a problem.
Okay. Another question, if a mistake is made in drug testing, can the lab be held liable?
Yes. It's not, doesn't happen often, and it's not easy to prove they were wrong. And the burden of proof is on you. It's not that they have to prove it was right. You have to prove they were wrong. And you know, you don't have a videotape of their testing process. The records of how they tested your particular sample are pretty sparse. But I have seen a couple of cases where the lab screwed up. The law is very clear. Doctors can't be negligent in providing medical care, and there's no exception to the laws of negligence for drug testing labs. If they screw up and you lose a job and you can prove they screwed up, labs have been successfully sued in the past for negligence. It's not easy to do, but it has been done, and it's worth talking to a lawyer. If you failed the drug test and you lost a job and it's gone, there's nothing you can do to save that job now. Most lawyers will talk to you without charging you a fee just to see if you have any kind of a case or not. It can't hurt to talk to one. And in fact, unfortunately, this is not a subject most lawyers have a great deal of expertise in, which is why I put my phone number and email address on one of those slides. If you fail the test and your lawyer goes, I don't know. This is not my field of expertise. I'm not taking this case, not because you don't have a case, but because I can't tell if you have a case. You or your lawyer could call us, and we can help evaluate whether or not this is a case where the mistake is demonstrably negligent. It's not easy, but sometimes it's been done.
Okay. Another question is, can they do genetic testing without your consent?
Thank you for asking. No, no, no. There happens to be a federal law called the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, passed by Congress and signed by President Bush Jr. in 2008. It says all employers, cannot use genetic information against you. They cannot acquire genetic information to use against you. So the company could conduct a genetic test with whatever blood or urine or information they got, but it's absolutely illegal for a company to even acquire genetic information about you, much less use it. And there's probably a couple of employers out there that are cheating, but by and large, employers follow that law.
Okay.
And I know it quite well because I spent 18 years getting it passed. So it's out there. That's one thing you probably don't have to worry about. If that law wasn't there, the reason we spent almost 20 years getting it enacted is we now have scientists have now found the genes that are connected to breast cancer and Huntington's and Alzheimer's and horrible diseases that are very expensive. If it were possible and legal to do genetic testing, employers would be doing it. And if you or your daughter is BRCA1 positive, you're screwed. You're not going to get a job. But fortunately, that's not going to happen because before it became a common practice, we got it made illegal. So you can scratch that off your worry list. Genetic testing that's not going to happen to you. They could do it, but they.
Is there a service to check references?
Yes. When I was in the corporate world, sometimes if a job was really important, we had 2 people working on it. I would make calls, and then we had a private contractor who sometimes made calls too. He had a way of getting people to talk sometimes, even when I couldn't get it out of them. So they're out there. Whether you can find one on the internet or not, I don't know. But there are people that do reference checking professionally. And if you're concerned about what your previous boss is going to say about you, you did a great job, but you don't think he liked you, you could just test it. And it wouldn't have to be a real professional reference checker. If you got a friend who doesn't mind being a little creative, somebody could call your former supervisor and say that they're thinking about offering you a job and ask about you and to see what they say. It's a little cute, but it's not illegal. And in some cases, it wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm assuming before that you did a good job and you know your boss thinks good things about you. But some bosses are funny. They don't like you even if you did a good job. And there's no law that says you can't find out what they're going to say before you put their name down in an application. When in doubt, find out.
Another question on credit check. If a debt is sent for collection and then satisfied, does this show up on a credit report?
It might. Again, there's no law that says this should be in a credit report, that can't be in a credit report. What shows up in a credit report is whatever the credit checking agency decides to include. So it might go away because you eventually satisfied it, but it could still show up. But if it does show up, you can certainly tell that one to the HR person. Yeah, I didn't pay this bill 5 years ago, but I paid it. It shouldn't be the kiss of death, even if it does show up. It's
Sure.
the ones you didn't pay at all that come back to haunt you.
Another question. If rejected because of reporting, for instance, medical, criminal, but not credit, will the company explain?
If it's not criminal or credit, they probably won't explain. It's nothing we'll ever see a law on because I got too many bigger injustices to try to fight. But even in the corporate world, we would tell somebody, listen, I know the interview went well, but here's why we didn't hire you. Very few, if any, companies will tell you why they didn't hire you. Again, it's the damn lawyers. If they say why they didn't hire you, there's some possibility that you could use it against them. The safest thing for the employer is not to tell you anything about why they didn't hire you. And they almost never do, unless it was something like credit, drugs, or criminal record. And maybe there's a way to get around it, but I've been looking for years, and I think you can try, but
Okay.
you probably won't be able to find out. It's too bad. It could be useful information.
How would you know if the employer The employer took a genetic, how would you know if the employer took a genetic test on you and used genetic information about you?
It would be, it's really difficult because, of course, they're not going to tell you that they use that urine sample to run a genetic test. But there are cases where somebody has been turned down for a job and there's no other explanation. It had to be their disability. And you know, in a case where it's really obvious, sometimes you can get a lawyer to take the case, and they have been won. But proving why somebody didn't hire you isn't the easiest thing in the world.
Okay. And here's one more question. Since these types of tests or checks could be kind of costly for the employer, are smaller or not-for-profit type organizations less likely to do as much checking and testing?
I think that's probably true. Even relatively small companies do some of this stuff, but it's standard procedure at big companies, not so much at smaller companies.
Okay. Also, don't assume that a not-for-profit doesn't have income. So some not-for-profits are, able to have those types of questions.
Mm-hmm. And of course, if you want to work for the ACLU, they're not going to make you take a drug test.
Sure.
And which raises a point that I almost threw in. I almost said, ask the people when you go in for the interview, ask what the pre-employment screening process is like. I'm not sure that's a good idea. They might have the thought that somebody's question before did and say, why is he asking that? Why does he want to know if we give a drug test or not? I think if I were in a situation, if there was some way I could find out what the company's pre-employment screens are that didn't involve asking the company, I'd do it. If I knew somebody who worked there, I'd call them up and say, so what did they make you do? Did they run a credit check? Did they make you pee in a bottle? Tell me what they did. So it's good information to have if you can get it, but don't ask HR. I think it will probably backfire.
And we'll take one more question, which is, would a routine medical test with anesthesia or a painkiller show up on a drug test? If so, for how long from that date?
One more thing you don't need to worry about. Even for, if you're under anesthesia in a hospital, you're probably not going to an interview while you're in the operating room. By the time you're out of the hospital and out of the OR and you've had a chance to apply for a job and go down for an interview, whatever happened to you in the hospital is going to be ancient history. It's not going to show up in the drug test.
Okay. Well, Lou, thank you so much. This was such a wonderful insight from a topic that is incredibly important, but we really haven't had an opportunity to hear from someone to talk about that. So thank you so much. It was great information. For everybody's information, if there's anything that you did miss, we will be posting the video of this program. You can go back to it. Probably by the end of the day, I'll be able to post it. And also the slide deck for any of the information, including Lou's contact information, is on our website. On the right sidebar of our website is meeting presentation documents, a link called meeting presentation documents, and all the information for this presentation will be there. And also remember, since some people were interested in a free credit score, a lot of credit cards also do give you your free FICO score, and FICO is really a brand of a credit score provider. So you can get that information for free. Sometimes it's on your credit card statement, or they have a link on their website for your record, so you can get that as well.
And David, if someone thinks of a question tomorrow or next week that they would have loved to ask but didn't think about, you've got my email address. Not-for-profits are too few people and too many balls to juggle. I can't write and promise in blood that I'll be able to get back to you and give you an answer. but I'll really try, and I probably will be able to get back to you. In any event, don't hesitate to ask if you have a question in the future. You've got my email address.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that. And
Hello, Lou.
excuse me.
I'm sorry. I just want to know, Credit Karma, is that another report that we can use?
I'm sorry, what's the
That's
question?
free. Credit Karma.
The website.
I send you all those emails. I was just wondering whether or not we can use Credit Karma to check our credit score.
I don't know that particular reference, but it's possible. There are a lot of other places you can get a credit report other than the one I gave you. But the one in the slide deck is the best because that's the one that's set up and run by the Federal Trade Commission. The others are, you don't know. There are some businesses that only pretty big players get involved in. You know, there's no mom and pops refining oil to make gasoline. Anybody can call themselves a background checking company. It could be a guy that's dog in the garage someplace. So there's plenty of other places you can go. You don't have to go to the site I gave you, but that really is the best one to use.
Good. Thank you very much. And, you know, we are keeping this presentation open in just a moment for open discussion so we can have more information exchanged then. Just want to let you know what's coming up here for the next few weeks. Next week is December 18th, moving right through the month, and we have a career coach panel discussion with 4 career coaches will be joining us. So you'll be able to ask your questions and get them answered with our panel of distinguished career coaches. So it'll be our first time doing a virtual panel. We're excited about that. So that's next week, December 18th. The next 2 Fridays are holidays, Christmas and New Year's Day. So we will not be having a meeting on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, and we will be back on January 8th. And actually, I'm giving a presentation here on January 8th called The Way to Assess Your Career Skills. So that's what we have coming over the next couple of weeks. Emails will go out each week to remind you. Other groups locally, of course, are available. The Breakfast Club of New Jersey will meet tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. You can check thebreakfastclubnj.com, thebreakfastclubnj.com. Mark Beal will be presenting, Are You the Chief Marketing Officer of Your Brand and Job Search? So really a terrific program from a wonderful marketer to help you understand how to promote your brand and job search. And the Career Support Group, which is the following week, it's going to be careersupportgroup.org, careersupportgroup.org. That's Saturday, December 19th at 8:30 in the morning. Eileen Sinnett, Body Language for Job Seekers. And she does talk about body language and projecting that through video and virtual conferences. So you may want to attend those. Groups are all free to attend. Just go to their website to get the connection information. Of course, New Jersey Job Seekers does meet each Tuesday evening at 7:30 in the evening, and I will put the link in the PSG of Mercer County LinkedIn group. That link is the same link they use every week, so if you've had it before, it is still good. PSG of Central New Jersey meets every Monday at 10:30 in the morning, so check psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. And PSG of Morris County meets each Wednesday morning at 9:30. You can check their website as well, psgmc.org, psgmc for Morris County, mc.org. So once again, want to thank Lou for giving us your time and being a member now of our PSG of Mercer family. Terrific information, very relevant for any job seeker. So thank you so much. And anybody else, you are all welcome. We hope to see you all virtually very soon, maybe next week. But until then, I'll simply say goodbye, everybody.